Good evening and welcome to Northbeat. I'm Shannon Scott. Nunavut's housing stock is about to get a big boost. The government of Nunavut has announced it will build 166 new housing units in 17 communities across the territory. The $134.7 million investment is part of Nunavut 3000, a 10-year plan to build 3,000 homes across Nunavut. The construction includes 146 public units and 20 staff housing units. This is year 2 of the plan. 150 units were commissioned during its first year, and those are expected to be completed in the next 12 months. In a news release, the president of the Nunavut Housing Corporation said that today's announcement marks a significant increase in the annual supply of new units. In total, the Nunavut 3000 strategy is expected to cost $2.57 billion. A court case is brewing over the alleged theft of a dog from the Braeburn Lodge in the Yukon. A white husky named Taya is at the center of the dispute. Jackie Hong has the details.
Steve Watson and Lee Knox are the respective owner and manager of the lodge, about an hour north of Whitehorse. In a lawsuit filed this week, they accuse ex-employee Laura Cumberland of taking Taya without permission. Cumberland worked at the lodge until last year. According to the statement of claim, she got into a dispute with Knox on Canada Day over putting icing on the lodge's cinnamon buns. She was laid off soon after. The lawsuit alleges that Cumberland returned to the lodge last week and demanded cinnamon buns. When she was denied, she allegedly ran into the back, took Taya, and fled. The lawsuit says that while Taya originally belonged to Cumberland, she gave the dog, still a puppy, to Knox and Watson in 2022 when she couldn't care for it anymore. CBC News has been unable to reach Cumberland for comment, but a Facebook profile associated with her has posted a series of images of a white husky in the past week. Knox and Watson won a court order for the immediate return of Taya. The lawsuit has yet to be tested at trial. Jackie Hong, CBC News, Whitehorse.
Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has formally unveiled sweeping and controversial gender policies for children, youth and adults that could have an impact on people from the NWT. The changes have triggered an immediate backlash and the threat of legal action. The CBC's Joe Horwood has the details.
Today I wish to address a very sensitive issue involving our children and gender identity.
From surgeries to sports, even the name a teenager chooses to go by. The United Conservative government is transforming gender policies in Alberta.
Prematurely encouraging or enabling children to alter their very biology or natural growth, no matter how well-intentioned and sincere, poses a risk to that child's future that I, as Premier, am not comfortable with permitting in our province.
The measures will ban provincially funded gender-affirming surgeries for Albertans 17 and under. Teens between 16 and 17 will only be allowed access to gender-affirming care with the approval of a parent, physician, and psychologist. Those ages won't need permission to use a different name or pronouns, but schools do have to inform parents, and kids 15 and under will need to ask their parents to sign off.
In rare circumstances, when transgender children experience an abusive parent, there are, of course, child protection laws that will be enforced.
Today, Smith promised trans Albertans,
I support you in becoming the person that you want to be or who you already are. And as Premier of this province, I will ensure your rights are always protected.
But some advocates have little confidence in that promise. Late Wednesday, the Skipping Stone Foundation and Egal Canada announced their intention to challenge the new rules in court to keep their communities safe.
This is an extremely cruel law that will harm immensely trans kids across the province.
Ashley says a constitutional challenge could depend on how the province proceeds with legislation.
If they do not use the notwithstanding clause, then what we'll primarily be looking at is Section 7, which is the right to life, liberty and security of the person under the Canadian Charter. We also have Section 15, right to equality. And in Saskatchewan, we're also even exploring Section 12, right to be free from cruel and unusual treatment or punishment.
When asked if legislating these changes could infringe on charter rights or the Canada Health Act, Smith said that's for the lawyers to debate. Joe Horwood, CBC News, Calgary.
I'm Sarah Krumlowski in Yellowknife. How will Alberta's decision to limit healthcare for trans kids affect people in the Northwest Territories? I'll have that story tomorrow on Northbeat.
Last night, we told you about an exchange in the House of Commons between Nunavut MP Lori Idlout and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Idlout was calling out the government over how hard it is for Nunavummiut in the territory to get passports. It's a big problem, especially for young athletes hoping to head to the Arctic Winter Games in Alaska. We now know that upwards of 70 Nunavut athletes are at risk of missing the Games, all because of issues with passports. Because the Games are in Alaska this year, all Canadians need a passport to get there. Officials say a number of factors have led to a time crunch in getting the applications in on time, including the availability of getting passport photos in smaller communities. And they also say many passport applications have been sent back, making the process even longer.
Obviously, we have a lot of people where English is their second language, and they're just missing a very simple step on the application. Or they've had issues getting the photo ID or the birth certificates in the first place to even be able to apply for the passport.
Deputer says they're working with federal officials to help get the passports done. In all, 291 athletes have qualified to represent Nunavut at this year's AWG. The organization representing Inuit in Canada is hoping for the next federal budget to address food insecurity among Inuit students. And they say that inaction is only driving up the price. Last March, Inuit Taparit Kanatami released a report highlighting the need to improve food security for Inuit students across the country. They also requested $1.66 billion from the federal government to implement a food program to address it. But to date, no funding has been committed, and inflation is driving the costs up. Kiana Foster is a senior policy advisor for ITK. She says the cost of the organization's plan have risen by $13 million since the report was written.
ITK is not aware of the upcoming federal budget process, but what we do know is that regardless of the outcome, ITK will continue to advocate for Inuit-driven solutions.
Foster says the federal government has started to engage with Inuit to address the recommendations in ITK's strategy. The next federal budget is expected this spring. 4 new wind turbines are still in testing mode on Heckle Hill in Whitehorse. The turbines are sending electricity to the grid, but some people in Whitehorse are wondering why the blades don't seem to be spinning. The company behind the project says weather conditions are behind the delay in getting the turbines up to speed.
Certainly on our side, we're pushing innovation and pushing technology really to the limits, even on our project. Certainly, when we have things like ice detection, new technology, new sensors. So on our side, we're certainly pushing the envelope, and of course, anytime we're going to integrate that with some heritage infrastructure, I think it's going to take a little bit of collaboration. It's going to take the right environment, and it's going to take patience.
Tashi says crews are still doing safety checks with Yukon Energy. He says other testing includes calibrating blade heating, ice detection sensors, and computer software. Once operational, the project will generate enough power for more than 650 homes every year. The Kwanlin Dun First Nations Development Corporation is managing the project. The NWT's Wolf Management program is coming to an end, but before the data can be processed, there's one more year of fieldwork to do. To that end, crews will soon be headed into the North Slave and Beaufort Delta regions, looking to collar as many as 35 wolves. The program hopes to track wolf numbers and migratory patterns in the NWT, all in the name of caribou conservation, specifically the Bathurst and Blue Nose herds. And the job is no easy task. Wolves must be located by helicopter, captured by net gun, and then secured so a collar can be fitted. A spokesperson for the Department of Environment and Climate Change says this will be the last year for the collaring program, but the data will take time to process.
So we'll spend the next few years, running all the samples, doing all the analyses, looking at all the movement data, and really relating that to these caribou metrics that we use for those populations and seeing if there's a relationship.
The department says this year's contract was awarded to Great Slave Helicopters. The program will start March 3rd in the North Slave region and finish in the Beaufort Delta region by the end of that month. A new study suggests sea otters are playing an important role to help fight climate change. Their voracious appetites may be helping reduce erosion along parts of the Pacific coast, including the shorelines of California and British Columbia. Adnan Ram explains.
Life is pretty chill for otters here along California's central coast. As the top predator, they swim and eat and eat.
They eat about a quarter to a third of their body weight every single day. So whatever they're eating, they're going to have big impacts on that.
Here in this Monterey Bay marsh, the otters are part of a simple but vital food web. There's the dominant plant, pickleweed. Its roots are eaten by shore crabs, and then the otters eat the crabs, thousands upon thousands of them a year.
It was a very, very clever experiment.
Researchers figured out what was happening by setting up zones where otters couldn't get in.
So they take some essentially netting and they build little fences around squares of pickleweed, but they leave a little gap underneath the netting so that the crabs can come and go from the enclosure.
Where the otters could get in showed a dramatic difference.
The pickleweed is healthier and the ground is firmer, and the erosion appears to be less.
It's similar to the effect otters have had in British Columbia over the last 50 years, eating sea urchins and allowing kelp to thrive, which helps fight climate change.
They're photosynthetic organisms, and so they are absorbing carbon. They're sequestering carbon.
There's a similar climate benefit on the California coast. Healthier pickleweed means better shoreline protection.
They're sort of like the first line of defense, buffering the inland areas and inland habitats from sea level rise and from massive storm events.
A key role for these predators just by being their hungry selves. Anand Ram, CBC News, Toronto.
This is the CFBC's largest detachment, home to elite units, federal and municipal scope. Congratulations on making the cut.
Have you spoken with your father?
We're coming for you and everyone like you.
I would rather be Baroque than blue.
Lots of reasons to not be a cop.
Necessary girls should know all of them.
Maybe you should reconsider the uniform and everything that it represents.
I'd rather fight from inside it to make a change.
Why, hello. It's me, Seth Rogen. 10 potters will be facing off in the most extraordinary ceramics competition show that this country has ever seen.
I'm Jen Robertson, and I'll be your host.
So are these potters ready?
This exploded.
To test their skills at the wheel and push themselves every week?
Oh, no.
So the ones that do stand out, they really do stand out.
And who will be named champion?
I'm excited to see it. Oh, wow!
Of the Great Canadian Pottery Throwdown.
How can any of this be fair?
Now, you might think, hey, we just need more doctors, but that's not really it.
A Russian scheme here
shows you where it starts, where it ends.
Were you really willing to risk that job?
Yes.
At Thunder Bay's favorite festival, Wake the Giant.
Ta-da! There it is.
It appears we have a mystery to solve.
It will be next.
He's dead. A murderer was murdered.
Toronto Constabulary, stop!
Here we go.
Make it mini!
I'm gonna push it, let's go.
My hands are shaking.
This is all very overwhelming.
Don't expect anything normal.
I can't believe it. I'm here.
A growing number of Northerners are turning to social media, things like TikTok, to teach the world about their culture. And that number includes the mayor of one Nunavut community. Lenny Panigayak is the mayor of Tuloy-Joac. He's been creating videos for over 3 years now, giving the world a glimpse of life in the community and on the land. And now his work is going global.
It got so much attention that there was even one guy from New York, he interviewed me, and he said, "Oh, Lenny, your videos are very interesting, very educational."
Well, that interview from New York led to offers of editing help with one of his posts, a post that ultimately went viral. It's now been viewed over 11 million times.
Reintroduced my video, and then that got another 2 million views. Those two combined, that's like 11 million. It was a big shock.
Panigayak says he's happy for the attention. He says sharing videos is a new way to keep traditional knowledge alive and pass down the values he learned from his parents. About 4 million Canadians have criminal records, and despite a nationwide labor shortage, a new report finds many businesses are unwilling to hire people who've had a prior conviction, no matter how minor. The CBC's Mike Crawley has that story.
Comeback Snacks is a small Ontario company that ships its flavored popcorn across the country. Emily O'Brien is its founder and CEO. She came up with the idea for her business when she was in prison.
For smuggling narcotics into Canada. But I still believed in myself, and I knew it wasn't the end.
O'Brien also knew that after getting out, finding a job could be a big challenge.
How can I make a comeback? How can I turn this around? And as I was talking with my other fellow inmates, I realized that we all had so much potential and we all just needed another chance.
O'Brien launched her business in 2020 and since then has hired 8 people who had criminal records, giving them part-time marketing jobs.
They have been the best. They have been so reliable.
That approach makes her something of an exception in Canada. Researchers commissioned by the John Howard Society of Ontario interviewed HR managers across Canada. Nearly half said they absolutely will not hire someone with any criminal record.
They would discard that application, and it didn't matter whether the record was old, what type of offense it was, whether it was relevant to the position.
Policy analyst Safia Hussein points to research from the US and other countries suggesting companies who refuse to hire workers with records may be missing out.
People with past criminal justice involvement have lower turnover, equal or better performance, equal or lower recruitment costs, and there's no difference in terms of risk of misconduct.
It's bringing calls for governments across Canada to take action.
Introduce a tax incentive for employers to hire people with criminal records. We think that this would go a long way to giving employers just that added boost to go and make that hire.
The human rights codes in British Columbia, Quebec, and Newfoundland and Labrador now prohibit workplace discrimination against people whose criminal records are unrelated to their job. The John Howard Society's report urges all provinces to do the same. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Vaughan, Ontario.
The federal government has introduced the legislation required to delay the expansion of Canada's medical-assisted dying program to the mentally ill until at least 2027. Ottawa says the healthcare system is not prepared to extend eligibility to include those whose only underlying condition is a mental illness.
What we are saying to Canadians is that because of the significance of the decision, because of the nature of the consequences of this kind of policy, we have to ensure that we get it right, and we are determined to do just that. And putting a pause on it for the next 3 years will ensure the system readiness, which is what the healthcare system has indicated is required and what Canadians are asking.
The federal government says provinces and territories have told them they need more time to get ready. The bill calls for at least a 3-year pause before it can be expanded and for further study by a joint committee within the next 2 years. The decision is getting pushback from some advocates and a group of senators. Parliament must move quickly to pass the legislation before the expansion automatically takes effect on March 17th. A new Inuktitut language children's cartoon series is currently in production. At the Cabin is geared to children aged 2 to 5 years old. It's being produced by Inhabit Media in cooperation with Takut Productions. Inhabit's co-founder says it's important to offer language options for children of all ages.
If we let our children hear Inuktitut language, they will thrive to speak our language. The parents can also learn to speak Inuktitut.
At the Cabin will feature a combination of animation, puppetry, and live-action segments focusing on educational themes, Inuit stories, and on-the-land knowledge. Flaherty says well-known Inuit musicians and cultural performers will host the segments. It's set to finish filming this year. One of those high-profile, high-bid auctions is underway online. This time, though, the prize isn't a piece of jewelry or some titan of history's personal belongings. It's a box of hockey cards. But this is no ordinary box of hockey cards. The CBC's Jason Warwick explains why it's special.
Hockey cards, a childhood obsession for many of us. Gems like Mike Bossy, Ray Bourque, Doug Gilmour, or Mark Messier. Or greats like Stan Mikita, Gordie Howe, or Terry Sawchuk discovered in your grandparents' basement. A few of us got lucky and contained a pack that opened the ultimate prize, a 1979 Wayne Gretzky O-Pee-Chee rookie card. Cards like this with rounded corners and other imperfections are likely worth only a few $100s.
On the other hand, mint-condition Gretzky rookie cards can fetch more than $100,000. One recently sold for nearly $4 million. That's why the card collector community is buzzing about a Saskatchewan family's discovery. In their Regina home, they found a large box, and inside, more than a dozen other boxes, all completely sealed. Thousands of 1979 O-Pee-Chee cards.
To come across a find like this is super rare. Regardless of your location. And so, yeah, I was pretty excited to hear about it.
They've put the whole thing up for auction, and some estimate there could be more than 24 of those coveted Gretzky rookie cards inside.
Oh, it was incredible. I think the exact words I said and texted back to him was, "Oh my God." No one had ever seen one of these cases before. No one has even heard of one or pictured one before. So when I had seen it, I was floored.
Simon's had it carefully packaged and shipped to the U.S. In less than a week, the bidding has already topped $1.3 million. Haney says the boxes look brand new.
They look immaculate, like they look super white, so doesn't look like there's any humidity issues, and obviously no, yellowing from any sort of light.
The family is asking to remain anonymous. It's unclear what a buyer will do with the box. Keep it closed, open a few of the smaller boxes, or open them all and carefully extract any Gretzky cards. But one thing is clear, this rare discovery is unlike any other. And sports fans and collectors, they'll be watching. Jason Warwick, CBC News, Saskatoon.
A remarkable senior from British Columbia is making waves in competitive swimming. She broke 3 world records recently, just shy of her 100th birthday. And she didn't take up the sport until years after her retirement. Arthi Thayaparan has more on what motivates her.
Betty Brussel never intended to take part in swimming competitions.
I was never that serious. I go for it, but if I don't win, it's okay too. But somehow or other, I did win quite often.
And at 99, Brussel is doing more than just winning. On January 20th at the Canadian Masters Championship in Victoria, she broke several world records in her age category. While she competes in various styles and distances, the 400-meter freestyle is her favorite. Brussel swims laps twice a week at a Surrey pool.
I just feel good about swimming. I just love to swim. I love the feeling of being in the water, gliding through the water. You have no weight in the pool.
While she's a bit shy of all the recent attention, Brussel hopes her achievements can encourage others to be active.
I really honestly don't feel special. Very often when I come in the pool on a meet, people come up to me and they say, I thought I was too old to start, or I think I'm going to quit, I'm getting old, and then look at me and they say, well, you can do it if you want to.
Arthi Thayaparan, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, you can always visit our website, cbc.ca/north. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Shannon Scott. We're going to leave you tonight with a look at the weather. Have a great night. We'll see you again tomorrow.
What do I like? I like open fires, moonlit nights, chatty letters, rainy days. I like daydreaming. I love this colorful little island of ruby, emerald, and sapphire. Yet often my dark moods come. I'm possessed body and soul by this depression. They say women shouldn't write. Some days I almost give up. But I cannot contain my imagination. I made Anne real. I gave her my love of nature, my love of books, and my childhood dreams. My greatest happiness would be to climb the alpine path and write upon it a woman's humble name.
Lucy Maud Montgomery battled depression, rejection, and sexism to become known around the world for Anne of Green Gables and 19 other novels.
Closing this case gets you one step closer to you getting back on the squad and keeping you out of prison.
You're not a detective, you're a con artist. You have a driver's license, right?
Of course, I'm 9. If you couldn't be a cop, what would you be?
Nothing. My dad raised me to be a cop. That's who I am. Stay here.
You're adorable.
You guys are making this entire station look like a circus.
He's busy trying to solve a murder. What are you doing?
Thanks for having my back.
Look at you.
This your girlfriend? This is not my girlfriend.
She's way too cool to be your girlfriend.
She's not way too cool to be my girlfriend.
Knock, knock!
Who's that?
He's fired!
I'm starting to think you don't know what a joke is.
You're gonna eat nothing but raw spleen. Getting into peak physical shape is 50% training, 50% diet.
Yeah. Never occurred to me to bring lawn chairs out here. Never occurred to the Egyptians to build the pyramids until it did.
Oh! Simpler times.
Let's set you up with a lunch date. You're deaf? I don't know sign.
This feels a little wrong. If accessibility is wrong, we don't want to be right.
Spicy. Oh, do tell.
Breaking news. The critics are talking. Oh, this is it. Imagine the Wonder Years if it were written by Gene Shepard. They twisted it all up.
Well, you can't trust a newsman.
Highly recommended.
Onwards.
Onwards.
Heartwarming.
This doesn't mean I'm better than anyone here tonight. It just says it.
100% fresh.
Well, I suppose we don't need to get rid of the cable right this second.
Son of a critch.
You look like a cod gasping for air.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes your world.
All right.
Reporting from the scene onto your screens.
It goes on like this, and on and on and on and on.
It's news you can trust, delivered when you want, where you want. On Canada's News app. Download the free CBC News app.
Name something you see people do on TV that you secretly could do better. Host. I knew that was hard.
Family Feud Canada. Watch free on CBC Gem.
We want you to know that you can ask us anything. Need help with your Riz?
You just made Riz uncool. There is something that's been bothering me. Are mutual funds or ETFs better for my long-term goals?
Load weapon!
Welcome to the show!
Fire! Big, 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 big!
I'm from the Liberal Party, and I...
What do we know about that with Andrew Chang?
I think we can explain.
Watch free on CBC Gem.